the users, eventually the farmers, you can say the health practitioners, and all these people, they communicate effectively and efficiently when they have this mobility and when they have the information at hand. And if efficient and timely information, that will help, implement whatever is planned in that document.
I couldn't agree more. Let me put on sort of a flip side of this question. Now, all of this is an opportunity for Ethiopia as a country, for the population to move ahead, to be more efficient, to transform the economy. How does this translate into the private sector? And in what way is this an opportunity for all those young, aspiring IT professionals to go into business and start delivering value on the other end, the kinds of things we talked about, but make a better living for themselves?
If you allow me to add on
Sure.
what I said earlier, the private sector has got the biggest opportunity now than ever, because one thing what makes Ethiopian market unique is its own script, its own language. There is a big potential for the private sector to come together and come up with a solution to utilize all this, communication and information technology, to make sure that information disseminated in the right way. I remember what our Prime Minister said once: the Ethiopian peasant doesn't have to learn English to understand, to be user of ICT, and he was right. Because if you, like you said, 80% of the Ethiopian population is living on agriculture and practicing agriculture as a living. They don't have to understand English to be users of ICT. So localization comes to mind, and localization can be opportunity for the private business here. At the same time, for the multinationals as well. I can cite Nokia's experience to come up with Ethiopian the Ethiopian language enabled phone, and
So they can text and
Microsoft's recent complete conversion of Vista, Windows Vista, into a complete Ethiopian language. So the kind of things can disseminate information easily, and people can be users of the systems.
Yeah, you bring up a very interesting point. In fact, I've raised this point on this show some time ago. Why isn't, and you look at it, you can take up the bigger question along with this added element to it. Why aren't we seeing, for example, computer assemblers manufacturing computers here that are geared towards the audience, say everything working in local language, in Amharic, in Orominya, in Tigrinya. Why don't we? Vista allows you to do that now, and BravoCom, maybe Levi, you can talk about this a little after Yilika, is already using software that enables people to text each other in local languages. Why hasn't this taken off? I'm just very curious.
That's a great point, Henok, and I agree with you. It's a huge opportunity for practitioners of IT in business here. One thing, because IT is mostly a resource multiplier, the way I see it. And what I mean by that is there's a deficit of skilled professionals and skilled business people, skilled in any sector anyway, here in Ethiopia. So if you have, for example, one surgeon which specializes in a specific sector, how can he share his knowledge with other doctors who may be in the remote areas? ICT enables that. The same thing for other professionals that are uniquely skilled, but we don't have enough numbers in Ethiopia. People in ICT can produce products and services that multiplies that limited resource that Ethiopia has. So
one doctor can reach thousands and thousands more.
Yeah, one doctor can reach many more. One professor can reach many in the regions. And as Siyum said, it's also a way of expanding, given that this is an ICT exhibition week, citizen service. Yeah. So, if ICT is properly deployed, why should somebody who's 1,000 kilometers away from Addis come to Addis to get passports? Yeah. This can be enabled by setting up the centers closer to where people are. The same thing for other kinds of services, filing for taxes, filing for VAT, and other clearance.
My question now is on this one, especially since I have you three are leading members of the ICT-ET Association. Why isn't a private? I see some beginnings. I see some I've met even some young software developers coming up with unique solutions for the Ethiopian market. Why hasn't this sector really taken off? Why don't we have thousands of private companies deploying their services in these ways? Why isn't a software developer enabling a private sector doctor to do what you just said?
It's a great question. The way I see it, one of the reasons why this doesn't happen is we don't have the ecosystem to grow not just IT businesses generally, but other businesses, supporting structures to make them a viable, fast-growing sector that help the general economy. So if you take countries like the US, they have venture capitalists, basically companies, individuals with money that put it and channel it to people with ideas, even in the ICT sector, with a business idea of solving a problem with using technology. So we don't have a fully developed supporting ecosystem for startup companies, particularly in ICT.
I agree.
That's one challenge. The other challenge is as with other things, first the selling of the ideas for the people who will utilize it. And by its nature, ICT-related business is cutting edge. So initially very few people understand it, and then there's a curve of until when everybody else sees the value in investing in a specific service or product that comes from IT businesses. So that's two major ones.
No, these are great points. I think in the rest of the world, especially in more developed markets, finance actually finds IT a scalable opportunity. So they're more eager to support venture capitalists. Even angel investors would come into these kinds of things. So I couldn't agree more. Levi, you want to add something, especially from the localization point of view as well, and what Nokia is doing there?
Yeah, so let's go back to that issue with Amharic devices. They call them, but it's actually Ethiopic. It's basically Guz, so the letters. So here's the dilemma. So let me give it to you from the Ethio Telecom perspective. From Ethio Telecom, for example, right now they send messages out in the bundle SMS, the outreach programs. Most of them are in English. Okay, so that's because they're concerned that if they sent it using Guz, not all phones would be able to actually identify the characters. So you'd get a bunch of boxes.
To have softwares that
correct.
Recognize.
So they're concerned. So Nokia and some other companies, actually even ZTE, they've actually built it's a Unicode solution. I mean, it's readily available. So they've had them in some of their devices on the low end and mid range. But the concern again from Ethio Telecom is if only Nokia and ZTE has it, what about those people who have Samsung devices and etc. So until you get everybody to adopt it, it becomes a little bit more difficult to start utilizing it. So one of the things we've also encouraged the ministry to do is to pressure the other vendors to also incorporate the Unicode solution so that it works across. The other general problem, I think, in Ethiopia in terms of ICT is the adoption rate. Let's start with that. So most people, I don't think today, out of 100 Ethiopians, how many of them would actually say ICT is important to me? I don't think it would be more than 5, to be honest with you, who'd say it's actually
5%?
important. 5%, yeah, out of 100. So it's because they don't understand. I mean, we're talking about general population, not just Addis Ababa. They don't understand the benefits. And so I think more and more people are now learning the benefits, especially with the fact that they are able to make phone calls in the rural part of Ethiopia with a mobile phone. So the closer you get to them, the more services that are available, the more they will start using it. So first, let's start. I mean, we're at the point where we're at 10% penetration in Ethiopia for mobile telephones. I mean, it's extremely low, one of the lowest in the world.
40% in Africa.
Yeah, I think it's even approaching 50 now. So give them time. So now there are programs in place to put the rural people in the rural communities on the network. So I know Ethio Telecom has a program in place, and they're going now and actually handing out phones with SIM cards, etc. So once you get people on, they would start getting used to making phone calls. Once they start getting used to phone calls, then they start getting used to SMS. SMS in the U.S. itself. I was there when SMS first picked up, and it really hadn't picked up for many years. It was really popular in Europe, and only when you had that show, American Idol, did SMS pick up in the U.S. So these are the types of programs required. So I would say the first step would be to get people to start SMSing. Once you've got SMS down, you start working on computers. And let's admit, not everybody in Ethiopia, or a very small percentage, have access to a computer.
I agree also, and I think there are some barriers, literacy, for example, and all of that. It could be challenges, but we get. Yeah, I'm gonna come back to it. We we get impatient because, as you just said, our telecom penetration rate is only about 10%, and there's a lot of challenges. Maybe we'll come back to that a little bit later. But our neighbors, let's look at Kenya, for example. And I think this might just be like a weeping ground for a lot of IT people. And I mean, look at M-Pesa, right? I mean, we can talk about a lot of things, but M-Pesa is a mobile platform that is really on par with the best in the world. And it does things. You can sit in a restaurant and pay your restaurant bill with a mobile phone. I mean, why aren't we getting anywhere near all of this? And we are so much bigger a country.
I'll answer this, and I know everybody's going to want to answer this.
And behind that, what I want to also hear is if we're going to go towards that, right? Because we know it's possible. Kenya is not grossly richer than us or more advanced. Whatever Kenya can do, we should be able to do, in theory. So my question following that, and will be pointed to all of you, is what would be the role of your association? What would be the role of government, the private sector? But lastly and not least, you're all diaspora, and you're all acquired high-level technical capacity in overseas markets. What is your role as diaspora also? Lots of questions, but take your time.
So I'll answer, and I know everybody's going to answer this question, so let me start. So Kenya, I've brought it up multiple times. We have many debates over Kenya. It's our next-door neighbor. One of the things we learned also is that Google doesn't have its headquarters for Africa in South Africa. It's in Kenya. But Kenya has what Yilgal told you earlier. It has a beautiful ecosystem for ICT. So for them, ICT is just at par with road construction. I mean, their road construction, I hope no Kenyans listening, is definitely not greater than ours. It's definitely not even close. But what I mean by that is the way we build roads, they build the ICT infrastructure. They are, for them, the penetration rate is much higher. They've had SMS campaigns, downloadables, all these types of services have been available for a long time. They also have had better connections than us in terms of connectivity in the past. And now we're coming up slowly but surely. But they've had ICT as part of their platform for a much longer period than Ethiopia. Okay, so that's one of the things. And so Kenya suddenly became a hub, first mover's advantage. They became a hub. Now you go to Kenya, everybody is doing weird things with their phones. Even for people who came from abroad, we look at Kenya and say, "Wow, how did they come up with that?" I'll tell you one story, which I like to, which I share with different folks, is what happened with some competition related to devices. Mm-hmm. So they had a competition. It was an international competition, and the winner was a Kenyan. His solution was, with a device, a store owner in rural part of Kenya would be able to tell Coca-Cola, would be able to tell all their suppliers how much stock he had, so they would know how much to replenish. Okay? I mean,
so
this is
inventory management.
Absolutely great with a mobile phone, a basic mobile phone. So let me stop there. I'll let the other gentleman answer. But again, like Yilgal said, they've had an ecosystem for years. Nice.